The soft beep of the heart monitor echoed through the high-ceilinged bedroom of the Beaumont estate. Just outside Charleston, the room smelled of antiseptic and wilting roses. Martin Beaumont, one of South Carolina's wealthiest men, lay dying in a hospital bed parked between oil paintings and antique furniture. Family members circled like well-dressed vultures, black dresses, navy suits, forced whispers. No one noticed the black woman seated quietly in the corner, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes fixed on Martin's face. Tanisha had slipped in nearly an hour ago, unseen, unwanted, but when the doctor stepped out to speak with the family in the hallway, she moved to his side. "I'm here, baby," she whispered, taking his frail hand. His eyelids fluttered. A thin smile broke through the pain. "Tanisha, you came. I promised I would. I should have told them," he rasped. 8 years wasn't enough. "You gave me everything that mattered," she said gently. "Let me protect your peace now." The door creaked. His brother Samuel stepped in and froze. "Who are you?" Tanisha didn't flinch. "Just a friend," she said. But she wasn't, and when the will was read, everyone would finally know who she truly was. Part 1. 8 years in the shadows. Charleston's summers were heavy and slow, thick with magnolia scent and secrets people didn't say out loud. Tanisha had learned to live in silence, slipping between shadows of society without leaving a trace. She didn't mind the quiet, not when the world outside refused to make space for a woman like her, a black woman from the East Side. Smart, proud, and unyielding, and yet, in the most unexpected way, she had found love, real love, with Martin Beaumont. She'd met him at a fundraiser for flood recovery, where she coordinated catering and logistics. Martin, tall, silver-templed, the son of a Southern dynasty, had noticed her adjusting a faulty mic before the mayor's speech. Their eyes met. No flirty games, no lines, just something real, something that settled deep. "I like the way you take charge," he'd said, smiling over a glass of Pinot Noir. Tanisha had smiled back. "I like a man who notices." From that night on, they became each other's secret. Dinners in hidden corners of Charleston. Weekends at a beach cottage registered under one of his holding companies. She never asked for more. At first, it felt romantic, forbidden, thrilling, like something out of a novel. But months became years, and the secret began to sting. Tanisha never pushed. She knew the legacy Martin was born into. The Beaumont name was etched onto buildings, museum wings, even a library at the University of South Carolina. Appearances mattered, so did bloodlines. "They'll never accept you," he said one night, lying beside her on the screened porch. Cicadas buzzing like static in the trees. "Not if we don't give them the chance," she'd whispered. "I'm not ashamed of you, Tanisha. I'm ashamed of them." That should have been enough. But every holiday spent alone, every milestone celebrated in private, left a small crack in her heart. And still, she stayed, because what they had, when it was just the two of them, was beautiful. He brought her lemon cake from her favorite bakery on bad days, memorized her coffee order, held her when her father passed. He was the man the world rarely saw, vulnerable, attentive, deeply human. She loved that version of him, loved him with a fullness that frightened her. By year 5, she gave him an ultimatum. "We go public after the 8th year," she said. "No more hiding." Martin had nodded, serious as stone. 8 years, I promise." And now, here she was, at year 8, standing in the grand bedroom of the Beaumont estate as the heart monitor slowed. She had kept her promise. But had he? As Tanisha held his frail hand and whispered, "I'm here, baby." The years swirled behind her like southern wind, sweet, hot, full of memories and ache. She had never asked for his wealth, only his truth, and in these final moments, she hoped he would finally give it. Part 2. A promise, and a goodbye. The room was still when Tanisha leaned in and pressed her lips gently against Martin's forehead. His skin was cool, clammy, and smelled faintly of lavender, the same oil she used when rubbing his temples during those long chemo nights. Machines clicked and beeped around them, but all she could hear was the strained effort of his breath. "I'm here," she whispered again. "You're not alone." His eyes fluttered open, clouded but focused. A faint smile cracked the pain on his pale lips. "Tanisha, You made it through the storm. Baby, she said softly, brushing a damp curl from his forehead. You're almost home. A single tear slipped from the corner of his eye. I should have told them, he murmured. I waited too long. Tanisha nodded, her throat tight. I know, but I also know why you didn't. It was fear, he confessed, of them, of what they'd do to you. And I was afraid of losing you. She admitted, so I accepted the shadows. But that doesn't mean it didn't hurt. His hand trembled as he gripped hers. I wrote everything down. The lawyer has it, the truth, it's coming. She smiled through the ache. I don't want the money. Martin, I never did. I know. I just wanted to love you out loud. They sat in silence for a few precious moments. The kind of quiet that only comes when words are no longer necessary. Outside, a wind stirred the Spanish moss on the oaks. Inside, memories passed between them like warm currents. Their first kiss in the rain behind the art museum. Sunday mornings making banana pancakes. The time he built her a bookshelf for her birthday even though he could barely swing a hammer. Then, the door creaked open. Samuel Beaumont, Martin's older brother, stepped in, all stiff posture and suspicion. He stopped cold at the sight of Tanisha sitting by Martin's side. Her hand wrapped around his. Samuel's voice was cold. Who are you? Tanisha didn't move. Her back was straight, her gaze steady. I'm just an old friend, she said smoothly before Martin could answer. Samuel narrowed his eyes, but Martin spoke up, his voice stronger than it had been all day. She stays. You have 5 minutes, Samuel snapped. The rest of the family needs time. When the door clicked shut again, Martin turned to her, his face grim. Even now, you protect them. No, she said gently. I'm protecting your peace. You always do that, he said with a faint smile. That's why I fell for you. You didn't care about the name. You cared about the man. I still do. He let out a ragged breath. Promise me something. Anything. Stay for the reading. Don't let them erase you. She hesitated. I need them to see you. He insisted. Really see you. Tanisha nodded, tears spilling now, unchecked. I promise. He exhaled a long, slow breath, as if her words gave him permission to let go just a little. A nurse entered a few minutes later. The doctor is calling a family meeting in the hallway. Just for a moment. Tanisha kissed Martin's hand and stood. I'll be back, okay? But as she stepped into the quiet hallway, her heart felt splintered. She walked past polished portraits of the Beaumont lineage. Stiff and unwelcoming. She didn't belong in those frames. Not yet, maybe not ever. She found a bench near a window and sat, burying her face in her hands. She wanted to scream, or sob, or both, but she did neither, because in that moment, surrounded by marble floors and heavy drapes, she realized something gut-wrenching. The man she loved was dying, and no one else in that house knew who he truly was. And no one knew her at all. If you're still here, still listening to this story with your heart open, leave a comment with the number 1. Let me know you're still walking beside Tanisha on this journey. Because the hardest part is yet to come. Part 3. The woman they never saw coming. The next morning dawned gray over Charleston. Skies swollen with the promise of summer rain. The Beaumont estate was quiet, too quiet, except for the soft clink of china in the drawing room and the low murmur of lawyers unpacking briefcases. Tanisha arrived alone. She wore a navy blue dress and a simple pearl necklace Martin once gave her on their 3rd anniversary. No makeup, no designer bag, just quiet dignity, wrapped in grief and resolve. As she stepped into the study where the will reading would be held, every head turned and froze. Samuel Beaumont's jaw tensed first. Then came murmurs from cousins, aunts, and distant relatives. Whispers slithered through the room like smoke. Who let her in? She was in the room yesterday. I thought she was hospice staff. Tanisha said nothing. She walked to the back row and took a seat. The attorney, Mr. Edwin Carr, adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat. Thank you all for being here. As you know, Mr. Martin Beaumont requested that his will be read in full, with all interested parties present. He glanced at Tanisha, a flicker of acknowledgement. Then focus. What is she doing here? Snapped Margaret Langston, Martin's cousin. She was close to my brother. Samuel said flatly. I assume she's here to say goodbye. Let her stay. It won't matter in a moment. Mr. Carr opened the folder and began. Legal language, standard bequests, a few polite nods and fake mournful smiles. And then, everything shifted. To my wife, Tanisha Grace Reynolds Beaumont, gasps, audible, sharp. I leave the primary residence in Edisto Beach. All associated trusts in her name. And full authority over the Martin G. Beaumont Foundation. The room exploded. Wife? Margaret nearly choked. You're joking. This must be a mistake. Samuel stood, livid. This is fraud. My brother would never. Carr held up a hand calmly. Mr. Beaumont legally married Ms. Reynolds on July 14, 8 years ago, in Savannah. Here is a certified marriage license and video footage from the courthouse. There is also a notarized video message from Martin himself, recorded last month, which I have been instructed to play. He pressed a button. The screen flickered to life. Martin appeared, pale and thinner than most remembered. But his voice was steady. If you're watching this, I'm gone, and I'm sorry I didn't have the courage to say this when I should have. Tanisha is my wife, my partner, my North Star. For 8 years, she stood by me quietly while I protected a family name that didn't deserve it. I made her a promise that I would honor her. And today, I am. Silence. A profound, gut-level silence fell over the room. Martin looked into the camera. If you're angry, ask yourselves, what truly shames you? That I loved her, or that you never bothered to see her? The video ended. No one breathed for several seconds. Then Tanisha stood, not to gloat, not to fight, simply to honor herself. I didn't come for your approval, she said, voice calm, and I don't need your permission. I loved Martin when there was nothing to gain and everything to lose. I was his wife, whether or not you could see it, and I kept my silence so he could have peace. Samuel pointed at her, face red. You manipulated him. No, she said gently. He just finally saw through you. She walked out of the room before anyone could stop her, heels echoing against the marble. The storm had broken, not outside, but within those ancestral walls that once shut her out. And as she stepped onto the wide veranda, raindrops began to fall, soft, slow, almost like forgiveness. Part 4. The weight of her name. The rain didn't last. By midday, the sky over Charleston cleared, leaving behind streets that shimmered with sunlit puddles. But inside the walls of the Beaumont estate, the storm had only just begun. Tanisha knew it wouldn't be over with a single reading. Less than 24 hours after the video played, confirming her marriage, her right to the estate, and her role as the executor of Martin's foundation, the backlash began. The first call came from a local journalist who just wanted her side of the story. The second was from a socialite gossip blog, offering her a discreet interview to explain how a woman like her ended up with a man like Martin Beaumont. She didn't respond, but the world outside didn't need her voice to spin their own narratives. Headlines flooded social media. Beaumont widow stuns elite circles, hidden marriage revealed. From the east side to the estate. Who is Tanisha Reynolds? Did Martin Beaumont lose his mind, or find his heart? And then came the venom. On the Beaumont family's private Facebook page, Margaret Langston posted a carefully curated photo of Martin's childhood home with a caption that read, "Built by generations of dignity, now claimed by deception." Tanisha didn't comment. She didn't need to, because someone else did. It was Elizabeth, Martin's niece, the youngest of the Beaumonts, fresh out of law school, quiet, always observing. Her reply was simple. You all watched him die. She held his hand. That's all I need to know. It was the first time in days Tanisha had let herself cry. Later that week, the Beaumonts called a family meeting. Tanisha was invited, but not welcomed. She walked into the sitting room, the same one that once held her in silence, and stood tall as Samuel stood to speak. We are not contesting the will, he said bluntly. It's airtight, but we won't pretend to accept you. I'm not asking you to. She replied. You embarrassed this family. You blindsided us. I protected Martin's peace. Tanisha interrupted. While you were preparing speeches and appearances, I was helping him fight for each breath. Margaret scoffed. You're just here for the money. I was there long before the money mattered. You don't know me, and that's the difference between us. I never pretended to know you either. Samuel stepped closer. This foundation, his name, It belongs to this family. Tanisha didn't blink. His name belongs to truth. And I carry that now. There was silence, deep and unsettled. She turned to leave but paused at the doorway. If any of you want to know Martin beyond the press releases and portraits, come to the foundation launch. We're feeding the city's unhoused next month, the way he always wanted. She didn't wait for a response. She didn't need one. Outside, she met Elizabeth on the front steps. You didn't have to defend me, Tanisha said softly. Elizabeth shrugged. He loved you. That's enough. And I think it's time someone in this family starts listening to more than inheritance. Tanisha smiled for the first time in days. You're welcome at the foundation. Anytime. I'll be there. Elizabeth nodded. Not because I have to. Because I want to. And just like that, a crack opened in the walls the Beaumont name had built for generations. Not with fury, but with truth. And Tanisha, the woman they tried to erase, stood at the center of it all. Not as a shadow, but as a light. If you're still listening, still walking beside Tanisha as she holds her ground, comment the number 2. Let me know you're still here, because what comes next will change everything. Part 5. A legacy made visible. 2 months later, the ballroom of the Charleston Civic Center was filled to the brim, not with billionaires or society elites, but with school teachers, single mothers, veterans, and small business owners. People Martin once said, "Build this country without being seen." At the front stood a podium bearing a gold plaque. The Martin G. Beaumont Foundation for Dignity, Justice, and Community. Tanisha stood behind it, not hidden, not silenced, but seen. She wore a white suit, not designer, but clean, crisp, powerful, her hair pulled back in a soft bun. Around her wrist, the bracelet Martin gave her the first Christmas they spent together. She tapped the mic gently. Good evening. The room settled. Cameras clicked. Phones rose. My name is Tanisha Reynolds Beaumont. She began, her voice steady but warm. And for 8 years, I lived a love that many of you wouldn't recognize. It wasn't in magazines or country club photos. It was in quiet Sunday mornings and late-night chemo appointments. It was real, and it was ours. There was silence, not the kind that stifles, but the kind that listens. Martin and I dreamed of this moment. A place where his wealth wouldn't just stay trapped in trust funds and oil portfolios, but would be used to build hope. Real, tangible hope. Behind her, a screen lit up with images, free clinics funded in his name, soup kitchens across the Carolinas, after-school music programs, and a women's shelter being renovated by volunteers. He told me once, Tanisha continued, that his name had been built by men who never had to beg to be heard. So he wanted to give his voice to those who were never handed a microphone. She looked down for a breath, then met the crowd again. Martin didn't give me power. He gave me his trust. And with that, I give you this foundation, not as a symbol of wealth, but as a home for healing. In the front row, Elizabeth wiped a tear. Beside her sat city officials, school principals, and community organizers, all invited by Tanisha personally. And just behind them sat a young girl, no older than 7, wearing a blue dress and holding a single sunflower. Her name was Grace, Tanisha and Martin's daughter. She looked up at the stage, beaming. After the speech, the crowd rose to its feet. It wasn't just applause. It was affirmation. It was the world finally catching up to the truth. Later, as the room emptied, Samuel approached Tanisha by the side door. His expression was unreadable. You did well, he said simply. I didn't do it for you. He nodded. I know. That's why it worked. He extended his hand, not for forgiveness, but for recognition. Tanisha shook it, not out of obligation, but out of grace. Grace looks just like him, Samuel said, glancing toward the girl. She's got his stubbornness. Tanisha replied with a faint smile. She'll need it. Don't worry, she's got mine too. That night, Tanisha stood alone under the old oaks near the water, the warm breeze pulling at her sleeves. She looked up at the stars, then down at the gold ring on her left hand. She had loved quietly. She had grieved deeply. But now, she would lead visibly. Martin's voice echoed in her memory. From that video he left behind. They'll remember your strength, T, even if they try not to. She whispered into the wind. They'll remember us both. And from the Foundation's first scholarship to the shelter named after her mother. Tanisha would make sure the story didn't end with a headline. It would begin again, in every life touched by the legacy they built. Not in marble, but in meaning. Thank you for staying with Tanisha to the end. If her journey moved you, if you believe in love that defies the rules and legacy that lifts others, leave a comment with the number 3. Let me know you're still here, and that stories like this still matter. Sometimes, the deepest kind of love is the one we live in silence. Tanisha never asked for headlines. She didn't want a seat at a fancy table or her name etched in gold. All she ever wanted was to love fully, and be seen fully in return. But for 8 long years, she lived in the shadows, quietly standing beside a man who meant the world to her, even as the world refused to see her. And yet, when the time came, she didn't fight with anger. She stood with grace. Her story reminds us that truth has its own rhythm. It may be buried for a season, but it always finds its way back to the light. No matter how powerful the gatekeepers, no matter how loud the noise, when you carry your truth with dignity, one day, it will speak for itself. Many of us have known a Tanisha. Maybe you've been her, silenced, overlooked, doubted. But here's the truth. Your value is never decided by who recognizes you. It's defined by what you carry inside: love, courage, and an unshakable sense of purpose. So keep showing up. Keep choosing kindness when it's hard. Keep telling your story, even if your voice shakes. Because someone out there is waiting to hear it. And if Tanisha's journey touched something deep inside you, if you've ever held back your voice out of fear, then this space is for you. Leave a comment with the number 4 if you're still here, still listening, still believing that quiet strength can change the world. And if you haven't yet, hit subscribe. There's more to come. Stories that lift, stories that heal, stories that matter. Because here, every voice, even the quiet ones, deserves to be heard.